Ryan Mann, welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about resort area, Cape Cod markets, and what it's like living on the seashore, and the difference in the market, and how buyers react and sellers react to the changes and what's going on all the time. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Joe. Glad to be here.
Yeah, hey, it's interesting. I grew up, cut my teeth in real estate in the resort areas of Cape Cod, the hills, the mountains of New Hampshire, and coast of Rhode Island, and now I'm in a city in North Carolina, and the difference in the market is stark.
Is that
So, and a lot of people think that there's something, there's something that's glamorous about being in the resort areas on the coast. And they aspire to get there. It's a wonderful place to live. There are certain challenges and certain opportunities, and I'd love to try to get into that a little bit. First, when did you get into the business? How long have you been in?
so? I'm almost at 9 years now as a Cape Cod realtor here. I did 15 years before that in land conservation as a wildlife biologist and a land specialist for several nonprofits. So most of my career has been here on Cape Cod. And I didn't grow up here, but as much as people like to call people a wash ashore if you weren't born here, I think actually most people on the Cape are extremely welcoming and very warm, just in the sense that we're all in this together. I actually, as much as there's always that wash ashore feeling, like the natives versus the folks like me who found this place as an adult, I think it's really a great place for
Yeah,
people like that.
it is a beautiful place to live. And you are on the water more than a lot of the natives. You
That
spend a
may
lot
or
of
may
time on
not
the
be
water.
true. Yeah, I'm a pretty big sailor. I do race, and I have my own sailboat. I do a lot with kids, volunteering to take them out of the water, and it's definitely a different perspective. Coming upon Cape Cod and the islands from the water versus driving over the bridge. It's just
Absolutely.
it's a different perspective that never gets old.
Yeah, it's absolutely. So let's talk real estate. What is with buyers and sellers? What are the motivations that you're seeing with sellers right now? Why is somebody selling at this point?
Sure. Well, I would say not only in the short term, but I would say in the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to see the greatest transfer of wealth that this country has ever seen, period, because of people getting older and passing away and transferring that wealth to their heirs. People have different expectations than they did a generation ago. I think that the folks that are moving here tend to be older than maybe some of the demographics you might see in a city population. And you oftentimes, for the second homeowners, you see people that are a little more affluent than they might be in
Yeah,
other areas as a cohort. That doesn't mean that everybody is a millionaire or billionaire by any means. We see a lot of folks from central Massachusetts that their dream for the last 30 years has always been to have a place on the Cape.
yeah,
People in Connecticut, people in New York, even from the north, they come here, and that's because of the incredible high quality of life and the memories that they might have had here as kids. That is really making that happen. So, I see the biggest selling group as those that have a catalyst to move. So, you know, death, divorce, people getting married, so diamonds, people that are having babies, we need to buy the house. We've been renting here for a few years. They're already here. They know people. They have a community, and they're ready to buy things. And then, of course, we're seeing people sell they upgrade the house. They upgrade their property. So, definitely not necessarily a lot of like relocation. That's not
right.
a big market here, but because it's such a destination area, especially in the Northeast, it is a destination area that people really have an affinity for. And so that's who's coming here. And the people that are going here are either going because, we've retired and, there are less expensive places to live, or, they're not here anymore. Those are the two primary reasons why people are selling.
One of the things that just came to me, I just flashed back. There's a lot of older stock homes,
Oh, yes.
and the buyer these days is pretty picky. How are you prepping your sellers when it comes to getting their home ready and or setting their expectations of what they're going to get for a price?
Sure. So, I often, use the three things that sell homes. So what are the three things? The price, the location, and the condition. Okay. Any one of those things is off and the thing is going to sit. The house is going to sit for a long time. So if you overprice the house, no one comes looks at it. The location isn't good, but the price is really good. Some people are going to come look at it. The price is adjusted to the condition and the location. People are going to sell it. People are going to buy it. And I think that's a really good thing here on the Cape where you're right. Our housing stock, some of our houses are 200 years old. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that's the majority. Most of the houses here are either in, 50s, 60s, 80s. We had another building boom. Those are our primary building periods. Yes, there's some older. Yes, there's some newer. But, look, I was just down in Dallas a few weeks ago for a conference. And, folks were telling me, you can get this house for X dollars and it was built 2 years ago. That just doesn't happen here.
Right.
Just, we don't have that housing stock.
Yeah.
So I think that the expectations are both on the buyer and the seller. The buyer, you want a new house, you're going to pay a premium. You want a redone house where everything's perfect, you're going to pay a premium. What is your budget? If your budget matches that, great. Let's go look at those housing stocks. Especially considering, everybody dealt with COVID differently. Here on the Cape, we had a lot of folks that came from away, either used their summer home as their primary residence or bought a home to be their pandemic location. Some of those folks don't feel like this fit for them. So they are moving back to where they came from or the city or wherever work is taking them. Those homes that they bought may have had some distressed issues or condition issues or just dated, right?
Right.
Knotty pine walls and kitchens from the 1980s. There's certain expectations. What I'm doing with my sellers is I'm saying, look, we can price it at X just as is, and you will sell it. We will sell it because there's people that are looking to aspire to be here and their budget is X. And they can put a little work into it time after time, a little bit at a little bit. But if you want that premium price, you need to prep your property to be a premium property.
Yeah.
And so, for example, we were listed one just this week, and the homeowner actually hasn't lived there for a year. He's unfortunately moved to a assisted living facility. He's actually really thriving in his community, but he's like, I want to sell it as is because I don't want to do a lot of work. And I said, look, this is what the price is you're going to get. And he says, well, how can I make that better? Boom. We painted the whole thing. We put carpets new in the bedroom, put some new flooring in, and we're getting some good traction just with
Yeah.
those few little things. So it really depends on the motivation of the seller. But yeah, the conversation is, look, how do you want to reach your goals? And how can I help you get there? If it means that we're renovating an entire house, it may be worth it. But for most people, it means doing a few things that mean a lot.
Yeah.
And putting it on the market.
So let's take a look at the buyer side. And you have a lot of people that it's a dream. It's not a need. How do you control your time spent with people that are looking at a want and they're not finding it, but they don't want to give up and they keep going? How do you manage those people?
Yeah. So, well, I look at my business as I'm not a born salesperson. I'm not here in the same way that maybe somebody who's driven through sales, right? Like I am driven through relationships. I'm driven through my heart, and I'm giving you a piece of my heart. Now, the reality is not everybody's going to be a good fit, right? From the start, having a buyer's consultation. I actually don't understand why not every agent does a buyer's consult. Sitting down with folks for an hour to not only explain my process, but to really understand what their needs are.
Yeah.
What I find oftentimes with buyers is they have all this list. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, look, I'm not sure we're going to be able to get you all that. You have 28 things that are a priority for you. Let's narrow it down to just 3 different boxes. What are the 5 top things that you don't think you can live without? If you were to purchase a property, what would it mean for you? And if those things are attainable, we say, okay, I think we can find this. What is your time frame? Because that changes what is attainable, right?
Yeah.
In some of these areas, there's a house that goes on the market every other week. In a lot of areas, there's a house that goes on the market once or twice a year.
Yeah.
So being ready and making sure we're honing in and not just being a fireworks barge on fire, going all over the place, trying to figure out different price points, finished and unfinished, needs work, doesn't need. What are your goals? And I think part of that buyer consult and the importance of the buyer consult is understanding the goals of the client, right? So the goals of the client are to be a golfer, and they really love golf, and they really want that. Then you talk about, well, do you want to be able to walk to a golf course? No, that's not necessary. Do you want to be able to have to belong to one course, or do you want to be in a bunch of courses? That's just one example, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Beaches are the same way. Beaches are like flavors of ice cream. Everybody's got their favorite beach on Cape Cod. They all have sand in their shoes when they're done with the beach, but at the end of the day, we all have our favorite spot, whether you have a sunset or a sunrise or good waves or not a lot of wind or sheltered or whatever it is. Those questions don't come just by having a 2-second conversation.
No.
Those come from time. What is your favorite thing to do? Why is that beach your favorite? Conservation areas, community events, whatever it is that's drawing people to this perfect place. We want to make sure that we deliver that. And sometimes that's not in, I want a pool or first floor primary bedroom. Sometimes that's from kind of getting to know them and really picking apart what their goals are here instead of just the actual attributes of the house.
That's great. Well, so your relationship driven.
Yes.
What is your superpower that keeps bringing clients back to you and that you're attracting?
I hear a lot of times people say, I never have had somebody who's gone, and the words above and beyond come up over and over again. Now, there are people definitely that are more data driven and are going to be able to spew out, days on market and houses and blah, blah, blah. I'm not necessarily, I can do that. I can prepare for the person like that. But I have to say, most of my tribe are more people that need assistance in a way that they want a full service experience. Everybody's concerned about price. Everybody's concerned about what the cost is to use an agent. Everybody's concerned about that. But I don't usually have issues with those things, because they see from the moment that they meet me that I care about where they end up. Okay. And really dig deep into those relationships to build my tribe.
That's great. Goes a long way.
Try it.
You've been in this business 9 years. You've seen a lot of stuff.
Yes.
So Ryan, you've been in this business a while. What is one story that still makes you cringe?
Sure. So, I think every realtor who's worth their weight knows when they're on top of things and they feel like they might have let something go. This was right before 2019, right before COVID happened. And I had this young family. They had a very young daughter who the guy said to me, he said, look, we want to sell our house, but you have to promise me we will not be homeless. I'm like, okay, well, let's get it on the market. It's going to be great. Things will be wonderful. Within about a week, we had their house under contract. We went looking for a house for them, found a house. The house had tenants, and they said, okay, they're going to be out by such and such a date. We started kind of working on when all the parameters, everything was worked out. The tenants had a place to go, blah, blah, blah. A week before, we're like, they're not moving very much. We haven't seen them move very much.
Right.
They stayed kind of put. And it's like,
Wow.
okay, how do we get these guys moving? Unfortunately, the other side of their sale said, look, you don't have a contingency.
Ooh.
You don't have a contingency for suitable housing because you had suitable housing. We're not extending.
Right.
You need to be out of that house, period.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh boy, what are we going to do here? So this is where Airbnb actually saved my day. Okay. Because I knew where they wanted to move. I knew where they were going to be moving. I looked up an Airbnb and we found a house that now we're in, mid to late December, early January. Found a house that was vacant. That was an Airbnb. And we asked the folks, hey, would you mind renting it to a worthy family that's just trying to get into a house? And they said, yep, absolutely. No problem. Sounds good. I had the seller of the house that they were buying agree to pay that house for up to 4 months while we worked this resale out. Okay. In that time frame, there was no movement, and it kept getting closer and closer to the drop dead date. And I actually have to hand it to the listing agent on that side, who actually I think did a fabulous job working together. We were a team in this, no No one's trying to
Of
hurt
course.
anybody. We're not
Right.
negotiating anything. We're trying to get people to the closing that they all want, right? But it came to a point where like, look, we're extending again, and these folks are still in the house. We're not moving. How do we get this fixed? And so at that point, I talked to my clients and I said, look, you have to decide what you want to do. Do we want to look for another house? You have an opportunity now. We've been in this house 3 or 4 months, but you have an opportunity. You can either walk away from this or we can continue to try to see what we can negotiate. Happens that we found a house that was closer to kind of ultimately what they wanted, but was a little more of a stretch.
Okay.
And was right across the street from her sister. It was like right there. It was like made for them, right?
Nice.
And so, armed with that story, I was on a mission, right? We don't sell properties based on the sob story. We can't do that. But the relationships that we have with our fellow agents matter at those type of points, right?
Yeah.
Because that other agent on the other side knew me, knew my reputation for being somebody who's compassionate for others, passionate about real estate, and it's damn well going to happen. Okay. So it's a guaranteed, even if it was a loan, right? Now, remember, now we're in COVID, we're in lockdown.
No.
Everybody and their brother wants this house. And I called up that agent. I said, look, this is a young family. I'm not sending you a love letter. We don't do that. But I will tell you, this is their last chance. This is their last chance. And I beg you, please just keep that in mind. And that agent, to her credit, was very ethical. She says, I'm not going to tell the client that. I can't do that.
Right.
But, I appreciate your effort. Just because I said that, she knew who I was.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was there. I didn't need to write a love letter. I didn't need to write anything. And 32 days later, we had them in that house.
Nice.
And to this day, I mean, they are wonderful family with good people and good, Cape Cod work hard kind of effort. And we got it done. And they remember that, right? Every so often I'll get a call. Hey, so and so said I needed to talk to you, that you're the only one I needed to talk to.
Nice.
I mean, that happens more than just because I did a phone call twice a year,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
They know what I did for them. And
Yeah.
frankly, it meant something to me to be like, I helped this family through one of the toughest times, probably most tumultuous times in their young family's lives. And we got through it together. So I'm really proud of that. And I'm really happy for that family. And I keep in touch very close with them.
There's a lot in there. What would you say is the biggest lesson that still reverberates?
Well, the biggest lesson is, and this is what I took from that, and you have to plan for all contingencies. And so there's a plan A, there's a plan B, there's a plan C, but guess what? It's all in the contract. Because frankly, if I had, even though it's a buy sell, there's a lot of things that can happen with either side. If I had in the contract sale contingent on sale of blank, maybe they wouldn't have gotten it. That's
Right.
true. But what's the goal here? The goal is to make sure that he didn't want to be homeless. I needed to listen to the client so much more intensely than I usually do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That I Who would have thought that was going to happen, right? I certainly didn't, but I
There,
think that's really important. That's listening to the client and making sure you're paying attention to those details. Those are really important.
yeah, that's everything. There are some agents in other states scratching their head saying, why didn't they just evict the people?
Yeah,
Massachusetts is Massachusetts. It is brutal when that happens.
A lot of people, I'm not getting political here, but a lot of people look at us and say, why do they do it that way? Well,
Yeah.
Massachusetts is number one in education, number one in healthcare, number one in quality of life and happiness. It's not by accident, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying that I agree with all the rules. Believe me, I don't. At the end of the day, they're put in place, especially with those evictions, they're put in place to protect everybody, right? And do I have to agree with it always? No, and I don't. But in this situation, it worked out for the better. I'm just really proud that everybody got what they needed at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, that's great. What is the one thing that in this business that you don't like? If you had a magic wand and could get rid of it, it'd go away.
I think there is a stigma amongst people who view realtors as, kind of a low man on the totem pole, not a huge amount of value. I think that a lot of that comes from the barriers to entry is very low. And at least here on the Cape, we have a lot of folks that are hustling multiple gigs, right? And one of their gigs is real estate agent. I can't speak for all areas, but here we have a lot of part-time agents, people that might sell one or two houses a year. They're paying off their golf membership. I'm not picking on anybody that goes to work, puts a shirt on, goes to an office or makes calls every day. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the folks that this is their side hustle. And especially in the last few years, we've seen a shift from this is easy, let's do more of this, to this is hard. This is actual. And even if you're really talented and genuine, you don't always win, right?
That's right.
And I think the ones that are talented, the ones that are in it for the right reasons, they're not only keeping up with their clients, but they're keeping up with the laws and the regulations that go along with it. You know, last year when the buyer agency stuff came into place and how things changed, I think there were a lot of people that were really scared of how that was going to work. Personally, we had been practicing buyer agency agreements for 3 years at that point.
Yeah.
You know, we were ready for it. There wasn't a lot of change. The only change was how some of the folks on the other side were interpreting things and they didn't know what was going on. And I'm not trying to pick on people as a whole, but if I was to strike a magic wand and say, what can we do as an industry to improve our reputation amongst the public? It's not showing our value, because I think the good ones do. It's making sure that we're all valued at the same level. And you can't be there's no part-time doctor out there, right?
That's true.
There's no part-time, there's not usually not even a part-time teacher. You know, the ones that are doing our kids, there's nobody doing that part-time. That is their career. And this industry needs to come to grips with the fact that if you can't do this full-time, if you can't put all your energy as a professional into this, this may not be the field for you. That's my thinking.
Yeah, you know, there's a couple of sides to that, and it's a hard line. I know of an agent who has a full-time job, and he closed $500,000 in GCI last year.
Yeah.
And it's a full-time 8 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever job, and he has his real estate dialed in, and he can do both.
Yeah,
Very rare.
That's the unicorn.
Yeah.
That's the unicorn. I mean, that's obviously an incredible human being with an incredible operations back end. Obviously,
It's all about the system.
it's all about the systems, right?
Yeah.
But I would say, and then you're right. You okay? Dial it back, Ryan Mann. Dial it back, right? You know, okay. But I think there's a lot of people that do this as a hobby.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of people that when they wake up in the morning, the first thing out of their mind is not looking at the hot sheet. Okay. It's not checking in with clients. They're thinking, oh, maybe I'll go do 18 on the golf course. Right. You know, I mean, and perception is a lot too, right? Like, how hard is that person going to work for me? Right. I think in this day and age of digital media, the online tools that are accessible to everybody, it's hard to know what the value of a good agent is unless you actually have a conversation with a really good agent. Right. And so if we dial it back and say, okay, how do we make this more professional? How do you tell what those characteristics are? Because if you have a guy that is full time and still doing a phenomenal job for their clients, that's great. But he's also probably able to speak in a way that's educated about every property that he's going to. He's not going in there with an undone shirt and maybe a t-shirt and a pair of flip-flops. I understand there's a place for that on Cape Cod, but
there are some agents that can get away with that.
It's not everybody, right?
No.
And so I think that at the end of the day, we need to strive as a group, as an entity, as a monolith of realtors for excellence, and not tolerate the I didn't know as an excuse, right? Yeah. Spend those hours to make sure you know. And if there's something else comes up, know that too.
Yeah, a lot of agents don't even know their own value, never mind the consumer knowing their value.
Sure.
right? And I think one of the things you mentioned earlier was knowing the other agents before you're on a deal with them. Like that, I mean, we
So
met,
important.
I don't even know if we ever did a deal together, and I've known you
No.
since you started, and it was
Yep.
all getting together, going networking, and
Yep.
yeah, no, that's super important.
But Joe, one of the things that you did that was really, really important, and the reason why I know you is you got involved with the local board, right? And so because you were involved with the local board, you knew who the players were. You knew what was going on, and you were at those networking events. And some people want to say, well, I'm never going to sell them a house. Why do I need to be there? And it's just those situations where there is 3 offers on the table, but they know you and they've seen
Huge.
you in action in some other capacity. Who do people work with? People they know, like, and trust. The same thing
Absolutely.
works on real estate.
And I used to use that when I would be on a listing appointment, a listing consult. I would always bring that up, that I was heavily involved with the association. I knew the agents. I talked about the networking events that I was part of and creating. I talked about all that. So they knew I had the industry. I knew it. I knew people,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that matters. And for somebody that's connected, from the consumer's point of view, that means a lot, because
Well,
you're not just out there a lone
right,
rider.
right. Well, and I think it says a lot about who you are as a human. I mean, look, you're a great human being, Joe, and we all know you're incredibly good looking and got a
There you go.
voice that's made just ooh, right? But there's another piece of that, which is a lot of people in and out of the industry. I get calls probably once or twice a week from agents outside of my brokerage saying, I got one today. Hey, who do you know that's a good chimney sweep? Who do you know who's a good cleaner? Who do you use for
Huge.
contractor? And I think, first of all, it's a great compliment when somebody who's not in your brokerage, so you're not just seeing them in the hall getting coffee, gives you a call and says, hey, who do you know for this? Right?
Yeah.
Years later, I've been gone from some of these places for years, right? But we still can be friends. We're still here to help each other out. And at the end of the day, that value that I bring to that person, when I have a client that needs their offer accepted, and it's between me and somebody they've never met and they've never seen, and they don't even recognize the brokerage, boom, it's not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close. Yeah.
Yeah. Huge. It's huge.
Yep.
All right, Ryan, let's leave this on a strong positive note for your clients that are here now with you now, that clients to be, and a message that agents would want to hear. What is the one thing that in this industry you will non-negotiable? It's a non-negotiable, something that you would never do. And then let's flip the opposite of that too.
I think, I actually said this in a video and it got really, it sounds corny a little bit, but, being real is one thing, but your integrity is all you have. It's all you have. And that can't be negotiable. Can't be.
Yeah.
So knowing that you're going to be attracted to you, even in a hard market, because you have integrity. You have something that others, even if they do have it, you're spewing it out. You're showing that it's not negotiable. That's not something that you're going to give away.
Okay.
Period.
And how do you demonstrate that?
Being there when you're not looking for something. I've heard so many people, and now it's kind of like a noon thing. Like when you're making calls to clients or you're making calls to prospective clients, you're talking to community leaders. How many times do you hear, I'm just calling to check in? No, you're not. What you just said is you don't know anything about that person.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Margaret, I just wanted to call, see how you're doing. How's your dog? It's this might be a completely different call, but something that I've always felt really strongly about. I always try to attend funerals, right? It's not necessarily a business strategy, right? But those people meant something to me.
Right.
They mean something to you, right? There should not be a negotiation about whether something you're there to support that family in one of the darkest days of their life. So I just think that's a huge thing for me. Make sure you're there for the right reasons and not to check in.
That's right. I love it. Ryan, hey, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate
Absolutely.
you, and hopefully get some more sailing days coming
Hopefully
up.
you'll have a few more down where you are than I am here, but
That's for
yeah,
sure.
thanks for having me on, and this was a lot of fun. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
do it again sometime.
Hey, and viewers, subscribe. We have phenomenal guests like Ryan on weekly, and you're sure to learn something new. Be your best. Have fun.